Okay, I sent you I'm sending you the invite. Did you join as a? I still don't see you. Okay, Megan, you have to join as a invite. You join. You're watching me.
I'm here. Can you see me or hear me?
No, I can't see you. So you have to let me invite you again. You have to accept the invitation. So I sent you the invite.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, did I get it?
Yes. Now you're.
All right.
Let me
Assalamu
just.
alaikum.
I'm gonna. So we don't get the echo. Okay. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
Okay. Good. Perfect. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah. Amma ba'd. Welcome to our show. We have here Megan Wayat. She's a founder of Wives of Jannah, and myself and Megan have long history. Like I can't even remember which year. Alhamdulillah, she's been my friend for almost 10, 15 years, and we've traveled the path together. We worked together on many projects, and I'm so happy to have her here. Megan, welcome.
Thank you so much. It's good to be here. I tell everybody I'm a little bit sniffly, and there's a chance I could sneeze during this, but alhamdulillah, we're here.
Good, good. So today's topic, let's jump right on. Today's topic is connection versus correction. How to protect your children hearts when learning their deen. So that's the primary topic that we're going to discuss. I think it's a very important topic because many times as Muslim parents, I myself have done that, because I think that fear comes. We always like get on like saying we forget the connection part and we always jump into the correction. Uh, and I think that's actually one of the foundation. The connection is foundation, but many times as Muslim parents we overlook that. We don't see the importance of it until much later, and many times people don't even know about it. And I want to hear your thoughts on that.
Bismillah. Well, it's interesting because I was having a conversation with a group of moms yesterday, and we were discussing salah, like teaching salah to young kids, between the ages of like 7 and 9. And they were asking me, like, what do you do when your 9-year-old doesn't want to pray? Or what do you do if your 9-year-old suddenly is like, oh, I don't feel like it, or they're dragging their feet? And we were having a conversation around, like, how do you handle kids? And I was telling them that, of course, every single child's personality is different and things like that. But I said, for me, maybe especially because I work in an area of relationships extensively for 14 years, and maybe because that's such an important part of my life and my work, I said, the relationship that I have with my child is more important for me at that moment than getting the task done. And I was telling them that, you can force children to do things out of fear, out of coercion, out of just wanting to make you get off their back. But in the long run, I was telling them, when kids are little, they want to please their parents and, they just kind of want to do the right thing. I said, but when they get to middle school, suddenly they start thinking intellectually, you have older kids, they start challenging ideas and concepts. And I said, and then that comes again, high school and college. I said, so each season of their development and their maturity, and through each of those timelines where they're getting access to more of the world and more of the world, they're being more exposed to more ideas and more concepts, and other people are now challenging them on why they do what they do. I said, like, the most important thing for me as a parent in the concept of teaching deen is the establishment of a relationship so that my kids want to come to me when they're either 21, 19, 15, 13, 12, all along, and have a conversation with me about their questions or their doubts and all these things. So the reason why I learned this idea a long time ago about the connection before the correction is it is easy to get hung up on just like correcting our kids and getting very upset when they don't do something that we would like them to do or we expect from them. And that's probably because we're afraid, right? Like we're afraid that we're failing, right? If our kids aren't doing the right thing, then I must be failing. So we become harsh with them. But, there was a sister in the group and she said, growing up for me, she said in the country that I grew up in, she said, for example, we're talking about Salah. She said, we didn't question prayer. You had to pray. You were told to pray. You prayed. She goes, we all prayed. But when we became teenagers, we were like all over the place. We didn't have an attachment to Islam. We didn't have an attachment to learning the deen, and we didn't want to pray. So we hid everything else from our parents. And I've heard this a lot, since I became Muslim, was, all these people were like, we were forced to do things, and there was a lot of harsh correctness. And seeing that the relationship with the family down the line isn't one that allows that relationship with kids, for the kids to talk to the parents about Islam. And it's the same thing with teachers. And when my older kids, my eldest is now 21, my second is going to be 20, inshallah, and then I have 12 and 9, just to give people perspective. When my older kids were little, and I was taking them to like masjid halakas and classes and things like that, they didn't like the style. They said, I always feel like the teacher's angry, and kind of like yelling at us, and it was always like these firm reminders, obeying your parents and how you treat, always parents, guys, right? There's always the talks about parents, but like they felt very intimidated and almost like kind of would pull away and kind of walking away feeling sort of maybe full of shame if there was something that they didn't think they were perfect, but certainly not curious to learn more or come home and discuss or like having really taken away something that lifted their hearts. And so that's where this comes from for me, is years of experience of seeing whether it's a masjid, forget children, right? How many of us have ever walked into a masjid and some harsh person has spoken to us rudely because we walked in the wrong entrance or we moved something we weren't supposed to, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not as adults, we don't like someone to treat us harshly.
Right.
And yet somehow with kids, even our own selves, right? My own self as a parent, somehow we can fall into that trap where we're becoming very harsh and we're correcting them, but we're not connecting with them. We're not nurturing our relationship with them. So yeah, it's something that I feel so very strongly about, that the relationship that you have with a person and how they feel in your presence is going to shape everything you're trying to teach them.
100%. I think I have two important points to share that. The connection part, you're 100% right, because parents need to have that connection. They have to establish the connection first. I mean, two connections, right? One, personal connection with your own children. Like no matter what happens, the children also feels comfortable to come to you, whether they are adolescent stage or whether they are in adult stage. You have to have that connection, number one. Number two, the parents also have the responsibility to connect the children to the deen.
Yeah.
The connection comes before the correction. Because I've heard this, I'll never forget. Back then, when I heard this story, I was not even a parenting coach, but then I always admire at my own observation. Growing up as a teenager, I used to observe a family. Mashallah, the father is like very practicing. He's much older than me, but he was very practicing. From the look itself, you'll know, like practicing. And his sons, even at that time, they're all his kids, adult kids, they weren't like him. So I used to wonder like why they're like that. And you can't ask these things to people, but that was just my observation, like when I was growing up. And then almost like decade later, I happened to meet one of the family member, and I asked her, like, do you mind if I ask a question? And then I told her, listen, growing up, I used to see your siblings, and I saw your father, mashallah. He looks, mashallah, very practicing. He's like, just by look itself, you'll know. But I didn't see that in your siblings. And then she held my hand like this, and she said, like, wow, Fozia, you are so right in your observation. I don't know how you even observe that. You're so right. Growing up, we were all very practicing. We had even Ustad come to our home to teach the Quran. We'll all be reading the Quran. We'll all be praying like top-notch Muslim children, Yeah. But we were all doing out of fear of my father, not out of fear or love of Allah. I really wish my father has taught all of us the love of Allah, at the same time the fear of Allah. Rather, we were doing out of fear of him. So what happened when my brothers growing up, like when they became adult, when they were on their own foot, like they're like, oh, we don't have to fear Baba anymore, we don't have to fear Dad anymore.
Yeah.
Like then, and then they just chose their own path. And you are so right in your observation. And then I think for me, that lesson, what she shared with me, was like gold, like literally gold. because that's why it's very important to raise children. Like, you have to establish the connection with the children, establish the connection of the deen to the children. Number one, you have to establish your own connection and the connection of the deen to the children, and show the children like the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the fear. Because as parents, we can't be with them forever, like, meaning we will be part of their life, but like once they are 20, 18, 19, 20, they will fly the nest, and they will either go for college, or they will go for education, like, or like work. They'll move, and you can't be behind them, like saying like, hey, did you pray, by the way, or did you today's Jummah, did you read Surah Kahf? Like, you cannot. At that time, your conversation will be totally different. So, but what do we need to do now, so the kids get, at that point? Because we have to establish that our own connection, number one, and the connection to the deen, that foundation, that's like very deep rooted, so our children practice the deen with passion and conviction.
Well, and I think that's why you and I, we've been friends for years, like you said. We've always synced on this because, like we used to take, like, our kids that are now older, right? We used to take them when we had, for example, a Maghrib Institute classes locally. We used to bring them. First, it was childcare, and then it was to the seminars. And it wasn't because we expected them to learn what was being taught in 2 weekends. And actually, we were trying to develop, a concept of like, we go together as a family, we learn these things, and just the idea. And we were developing an identity and hopefully a pattern, and all of it was, the intention was to do it in a loving way and a good way, and having just that experience for the kids, and they socialize around things that are Islamic. So we've always really understood that. And that's why, like, I know with the program that you've just launched and the things that you're working on, you're bringing that to it. And I think that's what makes this conversation easy for us, because I'm from here, you're not from here. You're from India, and yet we both have the exact same concern of, and probably, as moms, we've had moments, I'm sure, where we're like, yeah, I didn't handle that the best. I got frustrated with my kids. We all have those moments. And usually they are coming out of a panic, right? A fear. Like, we suddenly see the entire future based on this one moment, and we start judging ourselves, and we maybe become harsh with our kids. May Allah forgive us, right? But it is this understanding that we both have, I think, which has been so relieving. Like, even when you first launched Stars, and you created your app and all these stories, and then you had these downloads, and everything you were doing for kids was colorful and engaging and alive, and from this place of like inviting to goodness, like and ease and happiness, versus this narrow dark path of like must and shoulds and shame and darkness.
Yeah.
So we definitely always share that. And I think the thing is, for parents, and alhamdulillah, we've got a little bit of parenting experiences. We also know that, our children and their hearts are in our control. And that's why it's always like, there is no one on earth that can say, this is the method, this is the path, this is how you raise righteous Muslim children. But I can say the opposite. I can at least say that this is how you will hurt your children, and this is how you will hurt your relationship with your children, and this is how you may create spiritual trauma. Like, I can't promise, like, oh, we do this and we teach these things. This is just, I'm sharing my experience of what works, or maybe my experience when I've taught, middle school and high school students, when I used to be the principal of a Sunday school. I have all that experience and seeing what it was like to engage with the kids. But I can say that I work with the adults, and I work with everyone who grew up, and I can see where they've been hurt along the way and the things that have stood in the way. And one of them is this. It's just, we're Muslim by performance. And there's nothing wrong, in the sense that, like, we are obedient. Being a Muslim means to be obedient, right? We obey Allah. I don't pray 5 times a day, always when I feel like it. There is obedience. There is showing up as an adult. There is doing things when you don't feel like it. There is fasting in Ramadan when you don't feel like it. Of course, like, discipline is definitely a part of the success of a Muslim spiritually and in all areas of life. Discipline is important. But that's where you have to look at the long term. What is your role as a parent or as a teacher? What is your role in your child's life? And part of that is to maintain that relationship where you can keep nurturing them all throughout the seasons of their life and being there and supporting them. And that won't happen if there is that correction without that connection. Forgive me. I am trying to make it through without sneezing. And I think that's the thing that's pained me so much, is, when you hear kids talking about their parents and how they've treated them, like you said, performance wise, everything looks good on the outside. But internally, these are people who grow up to be adults who will tell me, I never ever once just talked to Allah. We
Mm.
make the dua or I make the adhkar. No one ever taught me just to talk to Allah, to have that kind of closeness with Him. Or people would say that, for them, because of how they were raised, focusing on correction, obedience, without that connection part or understanding, they're like, they see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the same way, right? That Allah will be angry at them the moment they make a mistake. And okay, even so, but there's no forgiveness part, right? There's no like the second half of Islam, right? The rahmah and the forgiveness and the ease and the hope and all these things, they're not transmitted. And so it's like, even like I said, as adults, I always ask parents to remember, even as an adult, if I come and tell you something harshly, or I just correct you, and I've always said for people, like even in a masjid, forget kids for a second, names before nasiha. This is my thing. Names before nasiha. Before you go up and tell that sister something's wrong with her hijab, or you want to tell that brother that something's wrong with the way he's praying, or whatever, do you even know their name?
Names.
Assalamu alaikum. How are you? Like, do you know who they are? Or
Or
are they
where
a
are you
new
from?
Muslim?
Or where are you
Yeah.
from?
Is
Like,
it their first time coming to the masjid 6 months ago? Like, we don't even know people. And so people get very, especially, by the way, we're on social media, right? Social media is the worst in this, right? We just slam each other left and right. We fatwa and we throw fatwas and whatever. Like, you don't even know the people you're talking to. There's no connection. Like the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he knew his community. And the people, as it grew and were further out, right? Of course, like you're getting distant in how he knows people intimately. But there was this idea of connection and understanding people when he gave advice or when he said something. It wasn't just harsh, 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 harsh. It's not how we see the Prophet ﷺ at all.
no.
And we see
No.
that Umar ibn Khattab started off this way, and subhanAllah, he softened some and became balanced in the middle. And so it's like, even as adults, if someone comes and tells you, hey, Fozia, you did this wrong. Fix it. Right? Or just, Fozia, you're going to miss prayer. Go. Like, if I talk to you, like, they're like, who are you? Right? And I'm doing it for good even, right? But you might go do it, but how are you going to feel about me afterward?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? You're not going to want to see me at the masjid. Like, the next time you go, like, oh God, there's that sister, right? And it's the same thing. Like, we have to think of our kids. They only get the parents that are put in front of them. Are we making our teaching of Islam something where they feel good? And if we make a mistake, if we become harsh, if we're correcting them, if we're rushing them, do we fix it? Do we come back and say, I'm really sorry. I realized I was just, really rushing you there. I apologize. I'm actually got 5 things on my brain and I was worried you were going to miss and that wasn't the right thing to do. Are we fixing it? So right. I'm very passionate about this. Yes.
When I started my journey in this, one of the things I realized is, as parents, we have our reasons to be strict or to be like to do things, but in spite of us parents putting the efforts to raise our children, and then in spite of giving them opportunities to learn, whether it's in the online or the masjid or wherever it is, but then there's that resistance in our children. They don't practice the deen with that passion, that zeal. Like, we just don't see it. And then when I started this research, actually I started interviewing masjid youth coordinators and directors across the nation, and I learned many things from that. And I really thought, like, I found the answer. Like, okay, parents need to have this Jannah mindset. They have to establish this foundation, and they have to connect the children to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala first, and they have to develop that love for Allah, and they have to like show them what's the purpose and everything. But then, the parents loved it. The parents loved what I taught, and they were so inspired. But there was a struggle. They were like, Sister Fozia, we love what you said, but then it's hard for us to say the same thing to our children, because the way our children are taught the deen is not like how you do it. It's not very inspiring. It's not that they don't know about deen. They know all the details. They know 5 pillars. They know it, but then they're just not connected to it. And we love what you do, but we wanted the same for our children. I think that's when I realized okay, it's not a full solution like just me helping or coaching parents. It has to be conveyed to the children as well. The children, the way children learn the deen need to be very inspiring. They have to have that engagement, they have to have the connection, and that's how, Muslim Nation Builders was born. And one of the thing that I we primarily focus is, as parents, many times we assume that when our children are born, they're going to be Muslims automatically.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the mistake, because I mean that's all our dream and everything, that's fine. But then what we are missing here is we are not giving an opportunity for the children to observe and to process what it means to be a Muslim. And on top of that, we are not treating our children like how Prophet ﷺ treated new Muslims at the time of Makki era. So if you see the first 10 years of Sirah, the methodology, like the Prophet ﷺ, there's a theme of the revelation that was happening. There was no ruling. There were no, like, even Salah wasn't like fard at that time. Hijab wasn't fard. But then what Prophet ﷺ was focused on, like, the tawheed, the love of Allah, the unseen.
Mm.
This is what he was focusing. This is, and then that Jannah mindset. Like the first 10 years he was prepping the Sahaba with the Jannah mindset. And then when the rulings came, like Sami'na wa ta'ana, like we hear, we obey. That's it. Like no ifs and buts. Like no ifs and buts. And if you see what parents we do today, it's totally opposite. It's totally opposite.
Yeah.
The Jannah mindset, like we are not even applying the prophetic blueprint. In fact, we are reversing that. We're doing everything else like okay, these are the do's and don'ts, these are the things that you shouldn't do, or you cannot do XYZ, you can only do these. And then we create that fear, but then we are not even helping our children to understand and process that what it means to be a Muslim, what is the purpose of a Muslim.
Right.
And without that foundation, what happens, all of this happens, like including my own family, without that foundation, when you try to build one after another, after everything will be fine until your child turn 10 or 11, everything will be fine, your child will be so good, they'll pray, they'll do this and that. Once they turn 11, okay, then the challenge starts. Like they'll start questioning, they'll start doubting, they'll be like, okay, what am I doing? It doesn't make sense. And then when they raise these questions, and then at that time we kind of panic, like, okay, how I thought I raised you well. And then you try to restrict them, you try to like create that fear, and then you are like forcing them. At that time the forcing from the parents come in, because the children are kind of resisting. And then what would the children do? They'll try to fake. If you ask, they pray, they'll say, yeah, I prayed. And then they go with hijab. And we hear so many stories of children taking hijab when they go to school, or they're not praying, or they're misbehaving out of home. So the practice of the deen is considered as like either burden or like a culture or a check mark. I think it is very, very important. That's why I think I'm so glad I launched the Muslim Nation Builders, because one of the thing we do in Muslim Nation Builders is like establish the Jannah mindset, because we are including the parents from day -10. The parents are on board even before the children start learning, because the parents need to establish that Jannah mindset as a family. It doesn't matter even if your children know the 5 pillars. Don't worry about it. You just have to re-establish, take a U-turn, and then like have a family meeting, like listen, you know what, we are here on a journey. And then just tell them we are stories, our original home, we are going back home. I mean, this is the concept I teach, like going back home. Because everybody can apply this, going back home, because every single person in the world can relate to this, except the homeless, because they don't have a home to go back. Anywhere you travel, anywhere you go, the last thing that you do is, okay, going back home. Whether you're flying back home, or you're driving back home, or you're walking back home, you're going back home. So you instill this Jannah, going back home. Our home is Jannah. Our home, our father Adam alayhi salam was in Jannah. That was his home, and we all belong there. But for us to get there, we have to work hard. We have to know where we are going. We have to know what is the purpose of our life, and we have to align our life so we please Allah in everything we do. And once the family has that alignment, everything will fall in place. You don't have to go behind your children. Yeah, go ahead.
But you said something that sparked a thought. I think that part of the challenge in this is a couple of things. And that's why I like that you said we're going to connect the parents in. Because see, usually when kids learn about Islam or they go to Quran class, it's separate from us, right? They go to their classes or their Sunday school, or they're part of Islamic private school. It's separate, right? For a lot of families, it's very separate. Because I homeschool, my stuff is usually together. I'm usually learning with my kids, but we're the exception. So kids are having their own environment and the parents are disconnected. And it's kind of like the kids are someone else is going to teach them their deen and they're going to go learn. But again, that connection and that bridge for what it does for the family is missing. Mm-hmm. So I do like that you're saying that. But something else too is sometimes like as adults, we forget what we were like as children. Like we completely forget. It's like parental amnesia, right? And you know, I tell people sometimes like, you see your child, right? Everybody here, if you have kids, you see your child and you know your child in a certain way. And sometimes we talk to our little kids as if they're adults. Like we talk to them from our level, right? We have expectations that are for adults who are perfect, right? But I tell people, you know, it's really interesting when you get to observe your child with other children interacting with another person. Because there's something about it. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to explain it, but it's kind of like you suddenly see your child again at their age. Right. You suddenly see all the other kids, you know.
And they're talking like all the kids think.
What they're talking about, what they're into, what they're processing. We often get stuck talking to our children as if they're mini adults. They're not mini adults, they're children. And they're in a completely different phase, a beautiful world for many of them and how they see things. Like there is no comprehension of what we are supposed to comprehend as adults for most children. And so we forget. And so we're like, again, we're correcting our children. We're teaching them Islam very logically, very intellectually from this place of like, and again, usually it's because, well, there's that one family, all the 7 children memorize the Quran, mashallah, like, alhamdulillah, right? That's great, right? But it's like you and your relationship and your family and your journey, don't forget, like, first of all, how were you as a child? I think, Fozia, I think I asked you once, weren't you the one that said like you were the naughty child between you and your sister? Was it you that she said, oh, Fozia used to give us a hard time when she was little? This was you, right?
I was.
Okay.
I was very
Okay, see, and I would love to hear those stories. Why were you naughty? What did you do? Like, and what did your mom do, right? Like, see, we forget these things, right? That we once did naughty things, or we weren't perfect kids, or we were more excited about the dessert that was being served. Of course, so we rushed through our prayer. And so I think also with parents is like they forget their own selves. And it's the same thing the Quran talks about. Sometimes like we forget our own selves. Who were we before? Like for a convert like myself, I can literally see who was I before Islam and who was I after. And for other people born Muslim, it's like, who were you before you were practicing or knowledgeable? Who are you now? We forget ourselves, especially we forget what it's like to be a child. And that's why I always ask Muslim adults, I say, you know, do you like to be corrected before someone's like connected with you? Do you like to be told what to do? Do you like someone to be harsh? Are you inspired in your love of the deen and connect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by just a highly intellectual dialogue for 10 years straight? Right? Is that how the Quran itself even talks to us, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't make the Quran a list of rules and obligations that we have to follow. There are stories and analogies and things to look forward to, and there is hope. And yes, there is fear and there's discipline and there's all, but it's all woven together. Right. And so it's remembering yourself as a child. And that's why I tell people, if you find yourself like literally talking to your child, and I'll say this to parents, same thing why people talk about children's emotions. Your child is supposed to have absolute mastery over their feelings so that you don't lose your stuff. It's ironic. You're getting upset. You're raising your voice at your child, and you're actually doing that expecting that they're going to have more mastery on their emotions than you have on your own. Oh. Irony, but it's part of parenting. Same thing with Islam. Right. Your child should have more khushu', more focus, more discipline, better memory than you. And it's and as I say, you're laughing, but like when we start to talk about it with people, they're like, "Oh my God, you're right." Like I'm berating my child, or I'm forgetting that they're a child, and then people start to go with the questions, like you said. Okay, yeah, that's good, Fozia. Like that's good, Megan. Yeah, but what about when and they start with the but questions. But you know, if we're gentle on them, you know, kids are lazy, right? Or they're not going to take Islam seriously, and the fears come out.
Mm.
right? And those
And
fears,
then,
by the way, don't
yeah,
have any foundation. They don't have
right.
any foundation. Like I said, you and I can't promise how our kids will turn out. May Allah bless, may Allah protect
I
them.
mean, I
But
mean,
we both have experience in seeing what happens when there is harm done, when there is
yes,
hurt done, right? So
yes.
it's like that fear comes in. And the other thing that you mentioned with kids when they hit 11 and 12, and your analogy about the Meccan period, for example, is that parents become consumed by popular opinion. They
Yes.
become consumed by how other people might look at their children. So if you
Mm.
notice, we're talking about prayer and hijab. Hijab, of course, is important, but we literally can't stop obsessing over this thing as if it is literally the most important part of being a Muslim woman, for example. It's we wear hijab, alhamdulillah. I wrote a book, How to Get Hijab Ready. It's important. No way we're going to ever make any form of ibadah something that's not serious. But there is such an obsession with the external and the performative that we're not nurturing the inside.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so, like you said, so later the shell looks good. And alhamdulillah, may Allah bless everyone with, whatever goodness their parents instilled in them or you have in yourself. But if we don't fill the inside and the heart and connect to Allah, then things aren't going to look very good for that
you're
person's
you're
iman and
you're
their iman and their worship.
you're 100% right. And like you mentioned, I was like rebellious, like when I was growing up, and when it was time to wear hijab, my parents, grandparents, like they were like doing like a mini session, like, oh, you have to do XYZ, you can't do this, you can't do that. And obviously I followed, but I questioned them because I grew up in a very heavy non-Muslim neighborhood and nobody wears hijab. And I
Yeah,
questioned them, like, why? And they said, like, well, as Muslim women we're supposed to wear. That was their answer, like, we
that
all
was
are
it.
Muslim women. I was like, okay, I need more, I need like, and I wasn't given an answer. And then I wasn't like, I didn't connect. And then when I used to go to college, and when I step out of the home, I'll just look back, and then if nobody's there, I'll just take it off and then put it in my bag and go. And
Yeah,
because I was like, but I would put it like, when family comes. And in India they have this culture, like when adhan is there, like people will get their sari and thing to cover their head. um but that's how I grew up. I didn't like connect until when I read the translated version of the Quran. Like when I came across the verses, I was like, oh my god, this is a direct commandment from Allah. I mean, why didn't my mom and my grandparents told me this? Like, I mean, it was like a shock for me. And then I connected, alhamdulillah. I think since then I'm a hijabi. But what I'm trying to say here is, if there is no connection, if our children don't understand the why behind why we do what we do, if they don't understand why, whether it's salah or whether it's hijab or anything, eventually, if they don't connect, they'll either fake it or they'll be like a mediocre, like, yeah, I'll do sometimes, or I'll do. But as Muslims, as Muslim parents, we wanted our children to be extraordinary. We wanted in everything they do, in anything they do. But for that, you need to build that connection. You need to have that connection, first of all, your own connection and their connection to the deen. Because you
yeah,
have to, doesn't matter what age your children are, just go back. I mean, I think that's what we do in Muslim Nation Builders. Like, help the parents to establish that connection. We help the parents, we coach them, we train them, hey, this is how you handle it. And the
I
same
like
thing
that.
we do with the children. And parents already know, okay, what they're going to learn. And even after they learn, for example, they finish their first class, the parents will get a notification, hey, by the way, your daughter Amina or your son Abdullah finished today, like Sira or whatever they learned. Like, by the way, today they studied about Battle of Badr. And they will get even summary of like what, because sometimes parents don't know, they'll even get a summary, this is what they learn. And here are your talking prompts,
Ooh,
here are
that's
your
good.
talking prompts. Like, so as a parent, you don't have to like think hard, like, okay, what do I like, you just like, okay, you just when you're driving the car, or you're tucking your child in the bed, or where you're serving them dinner or breakfast, like, you can just have a casual conversation, like, Amina, I just got an email or a message from your teacher that you guys learned about Battle of Badr. Tell me about it. That's your
Yeah.
first prompt. Tell
And you
me
know
about
what?
it.
We should change it to the connection points prompts, because what you're actually doing right there by coaching the parents is you're helping them connect with their children in a sense. But so I wanted to say, like, so that's not quiz your kids. Tell me what you learned. Well, what did they say? Right? It's not a quiz. It's actually an invitation for you to learn from your kids, or for maybe you to expand on something. Oh, really? You guys learned about Badr. Did you guys talk about this point? And or, oh, subhanAllah, I got to visit Badr one time. And you're able, like, you're actually increasing that connection. And I think if there's one goal that most Muslim parents have, it's like they want to share the deen with their kids. And sometimes they feel like they're not sure how, or school is already so busy. And, I had a client recently who was telling me that she has all these Islamic books that she really wants to read with her son, but she's just overwhelmed by looking at the collection, right? But it's like a vision. She has the books, right? And so I think all of us have that vision, and then life happens.
Right.
And so by having something like the Muslim Nation Builders program that you've created, you're creating structure. For example, for me as a mother, it's not just that my child's going to go to this live class and they're going to connect with their teacher and connect with other people, but now you're helping me develop a regular routine of like chatting with my kids and engaging with my kids. And that's changing a whole family, subhanAllah, by doing that, which is
Yes.
very different from child goes, parent prays for an update. Most of us ask our kids, so what did you learn? They're like, I don't know. A lot of kids, some kids are good, but a lot of kids are just like, I don't know. We talked about something. Well, what do you remember? I don't know. Right? Because kids just want to go back to playing, or they want to go back to something else. But you're creating like a system now where it's like, I'm going to find out. So then I'm going to chat with my kids and hopefully connect with them about what they're learning. And then they're connecting back to me, and we're creating a positive cycle. So yeah, I love that it's not a quiz. It's like, help me as a parent connect with my kids in Islam. Yeah. And that's amazing, Fawzia, because I'll tell you why. So many parents wish, like I had some people tell me recently, they're like, oh, you seem like you know so much about Islam. I feel like I never properly learned growing up, and now I have kids. And I'm like, alhamdulillah, my knowledge is very small, but thank you. And I'm sure you know so much that you're not giving yourself credit for. But the beautiful thing of having kids is they can be an instigation to learn. And so how amazing is it that you have a system that everyone can learn, but it's also not like, you're not asking parents for like 5 hours a week of them studying something, right? It's small, and it's, and something else that you said I wanted to bring up. A lot of times people will say, like, I don't know how to handle this question. Or parents will say, I'm so scared of my kids becoming teenagers. I'm like, why? LGBTQ stuff, or this and that stuff, right? They're so scared. How do you handle gender stuff? How do you, like, they become very afraid. Like, their kids are little now, but they're so worried about how to address it. So is this something where you feel like, especially if we talk about older kids a little bit, because I know you're also going to be teaching older children. Yeah. That like, that the parents could then come. Is there someone who's going to be able to help them if they're like, hey, my kid is asking me so many questions about this from school? What kind of support can the parents get within the program that you are doing?
Yeah, Megan, you won't believe what my vision for Muslim Nation Builders. The vision that I have for Muslim Nation Builders is like, it's a one-stop platform for Muslim parents. It doesn't matter what age their kids are. Anything they need, like parenting need, like their children, even the physical needs, like like sometimes parents will be worried about, okay, my kids get allergies, like I know it's not related to deen, but still it's like parenting, right? So that is what my vision is. So we would have ongoing sessions for parents. We will bring experts, which these parents will have access. They can ask questions live, they can raise their concerns, and even we can survey the parents and go, what are their most struggles, and we can bring the experts that will help their needs. And we're all onto this together. You're not alone, and you will have like amazing, awesome parents from all around the world who are being like in Muslim Nation Builders, whose aim is to raise a nation builder. So you will all be in a good company, and you will have that support system. You won't be alone. You will be with you'll be in good hands. That's what I would say. Like, that's what I am, like, I'm envisioning for Muslim Nation Builders.
I love that. So it's a community for the parents, a community for the children. The children get the direct Islamic learning, you're saying, but then there's parent-like coaching and also a relationship with the parent and the teacher.
Correct.
And it's
100%.
online. That's
Yes.
amazing. Online and
And
on site. I know you're going to do both,
yes.
but
Yeah.
yeah,
We have a session we have a maktab in Fresno, but other than that, majority of it online. But we only talked about one. We didn't talk about the other cool part of this,
tell
which
me.
is like, my daughters when they were growing up, like teachers have a very important role in children's life, and you know that very well. One of the other thing that we are helping parents is to help the parents to identify the fitra of the child. Like, as parents, we're all like, we send our children to school and whatnot, and in the process we don't recognize what the child is really good at, what, because each one of you have a fitra, like you, me, anyone. Like, there is something very specific and unique that Allah has blessed you and me with. Nobody else can fill that part, and that
Mhm.
applies to every single child that's born in this world. And it's a responsibility of the parents to recognize that and help them grow in that, so they can eventually, they know their path, they know, like, they know it, and then inshallah they will get better and better and good at it. And inshallah they will like become ummah star, like they become, because they exactly know their path. And many times parents have this within the box mentality. They don't think out of the box. Like, they just think, I mean, you are a little different because you're a homeschooler, but majority of the, you're not the majority. So but majority of them like have, like, okay, you have the middle school and you have the high school, the tension raises, like, oh my god, which exam you're going to take and which university are you going to get in, like, which field, make sure you get in this med school, or make sure you get into this school, make sure you get into this, so you finish it, and then what's next. In the process, parents are forgetting what the child's fitra is, what the child is really good at. Maybe the child is good at something else, but then you, as a parent, you are imposing your own dream on your children. And then that, like, basically totally kills the fitra, because I've seen many, many children who grown up later and realized, like, why did I even become this? I know doctors who studied medicine and then like didn't like it. They just like, okay, I
Yeah,
couldn't finish it, because studying, going to med school is not a joke. You mean, you really have to have that passion. And then because they went into the school because their parents told, because their parent paid money,
yeah,
and then you see what happened. And then it's like, and then by the time they realize that, they'll be almost in their mid 20s or late 20s, and their peers, well, they were already in the jobs, or they already got married and they are moving on in life. And that's a very big mistake parents make. And I think in
yeah.
Muslim nation, here in Muslim nation, we train teachers, we train the teachers, so they help the parents with, like, with their observation of their children, and then
Mhm.
talk to the children, talk to the parent, because they also learn what the parents observe about the child. Because as parents, sometimes we don't observe what our children do, because
Yeah,
we are carried off on with our life. When my child's teacher told me one time, Fauzia, your daughter has an amazing voice. When she stands up and narrates story, that's a free time for me. I can just sit and relax, because the entire class sits and listens. And she after that, I was like, huh, I didn't. And that's when I started recording the series. That's when I started recording stories for Umma Stars. That's how it started. So the way we see our children is different than the way the teachers see the children. And then that's one component in Muslim nation, but is where the parents or the teachers are trained to help the parents, so they can observe the child and they can help and show the unified vision that they can create for their own child.
well, that's very special. And you're definitely bringing like a whole personal development angle here. And I love that. That's really special because in the school system, at least here, most meetings with teachers are about performance. It's just how they're doing. They're doing great in math. They're going great in here. You could probably help them at home with their spelling, or it's very much performance based because the school system is performance based because money for the schools is based on performance. And as you mentioned, so as a side point though, homeschoolers still worry about their kids' college and future. um, but it's different because our process at least is a little different in terms of the education. Yes. And homeschoolers specifically, many of them, the veteran classical homeschoolers do actually adjust teaching their kids based on their children's personalities and interests. So there is something that is different there, but we still have all the same pressure after that as parents. But I think what is different, what you're saying is, whether it's for economic reasons, instability or status, the idea of the doctor, engineer, maybe business, lawyer model is something that, if you're willing to invest that in, what you're ultimately saying is it's full tarbiyah. It's not just learn Islam,
No,
because Islamic
holistic
studies,
approach.
yeah, Islam isn't it's not a thing you study, right? It's our way of life. And
Right.
what I'm hearing you describe ultimately is, like with my One Meaningful Life program, the whole model of that program, faith, family, fulfillment, is that you're living a life for a reason. And my tagline is build the life you were made for. And what you're really getting into here is that a teacher is also observing these children. What did Allah create them for?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not just what you're going to do as a career, and your career may be part of that purpose. That's fine. But you're really, I love that you're expanding, like, here's how we look at children. Like, there's something special. I always tell people, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave every single person something unique, like you said, and a role for them in this life. And
Right.
every single person will do things that are very fulfilling to them once they tap into the things that are natural to them, things
Right.
that come very easy to them. And so I love that, because a lot of parents do squash down their children's nature and what's good for them, again, out of fear, social status, and again, the fear is a really big driver. And so I love that you're flipping this on its head, and it's going, instead of here's what's wrong with your child, here's what they're not doing right, you're like, man, your child is such a great orator. Your child is such a fantastic listener. Your child brings up such great questions. Or
Right.
when they write or when they participate in a group, they're so compassionate and kind.
Right.
Like, that's telling us something. So if you have teachers that are going to tell that to parents, that's amazing.
I know. That's why I totally
You're
know
like, I
that.
know.
Because that's one of the thing.
Forgive me, guys.
See, we fear. You're right about the fear, because the fear part comes. That's natural for parents who don't have that Jannah mindset, who don't like believe in the risk. See, as we are Muslims, we have to believe, we have a concept of risk. Every child that's born in this world is coming with their own risk.
Yeah.
And when we have that Jannah mindset, right, we don't have to worry about like, oh my God, how much money is my daughter going to make, or how much money my son is going to make. Can he pay the rent? Don't worry about that. His risk is there. He has to work hard 100%. He has to do well 100%. But let him do in something which he's good for. Like something something he really enjoys doing it, and something he's really amazing. Like he when he the son or daughter, when they perform, like they do like an excellent job. See, that's how you create extraordinary people. That's how you create extraordinary Muslims. Not by like, for imposing your dreams, imposing your thoughts on your children. We wanted our ummah to be extraordinary. Each and every child, we wanted them to be extraordinary. And I am glad that I'm planting those seeds through Muslim Nation Builders, where I can provide that support and help to parents, where they can help their children. Inshallah, tomorrow they became extraordinary and they became nation builders of tomorrow. I'm so excited.
It's really amazing, mashallah. It sounds really amazing. And I don't know if people have joined late and they're trying to figure out what the heck we're talking about, but I know that I will be sharing more information about your classes and your program and things like that. Fozia, when does the classes for the parents start, and when does the classes for the kids start?
Not that long. So today is 25th. So this Saturday we are starting, September 30th. We're starting our first session for parents.
Nice.
And then following Saturdays, October 7th, Saturday, that's when 9 a.m. Pacific, that's 5 p.m. UK time, and 12 noon Eastern. That's when the first maktab classes start for the children. And
Mashallah.
we are on a 9-month program. So it will be we will end at the end of the 9th month. I think June 1st or June 2nd will be our last date. And we will have breaks for Thanksgiving, and we will have breaks for like winter breaks. There won't be classes. And we'll have breaks for Eid, and I think Memorial Day we can also come. So it's just like the regular schedule, like because parents will be traveling those weekends, and it's just like your regular school schedule.
Oh, beautiful. So are there any questions we need to handle before I disappear?
Yeah, I see. What are the timing for the classes? So the timing is 9 a.m. Pacific on Saturdays, which is 12 noon Eastern, and which is 5 p.m. UK time. And I've got parents who actually wanted to join from India and some place in Africa, and I told them I don't know what's the time in Tanzania, but I told them in India it's like 9:30 p.m. But if we have more parents in India, we can create another a group for parents who are in subcontinent like India, Pakistan, and even Dubai and Singapore and Malaysia. So but right now our timing is 9 a.m. Pacific.
Okay, so you can create like an individual cohort moving
Correct.
forward if there's
Correct.
enough people from a
Correct.
certain area. Oh, that's really exciting.
Yeah.
That's really awesome.
Yeah. So if we have like more parents are interested in because after we close the doors this week, we're going to have a wait list so parents can join the wait list. So if they just missed it, they just saw it and they wanted to be part of it, so we will keep monitoring the wait list, and then when we have enough parents, inshallah, we'll start the next cohort.
Okay, that's amazing. So the idea then is not necessarily that everyone's following the same online school, is that you can have multiple online and
Correct.
on-site schooling
Correct. Correct.
based on interests and need.
Correct.
And so basically what I'm understanding is all of your teachers are specially trained to teach the
Yes.
students in a very special way with
Correct.
the curriculum that you've developed. And so regardless of when people go through it, they're all getting this unique experience. The parents all have the support and
Yes.
the parent community. So you're creating a system that you can set up globally.
Yes, that's the aim, because I wanted to make it as flexible as possible, and at the same time, we wanted, we wanted parents to be part of it, because I created this for the parents and for the children, because I was seeing what the parents were going through on one side, and at the same time I was seeing the effects on the children, and I realized, like, there has to be something together where all of them are aligned, have the Jannah mindset, have that vision of Jannah. And then when you start that engaging education, inshallah, children would learn, like, like they will. It's not about like you connecting with your children. Like, see, when you watch the children, they will retain it more when you engage with your children, like, okay, what did you learn about Badr? And then when you hear your child saying, like, mom, it was so cool, there were only 300 plus sahabas, but there were 1,000 plus mushrikeen, but then who won? And then you ask, like, okay, who won? Of course the Sahaba, they won. How did they win? How did they win? And if you ask, when you have the children like light up and then say it, and then your children will do the same with their cousins, or with when you have a get together. When you witness your children doing that, that's the coolness of eyes. Like, that's like they're retaining, they're engaging, and they'll never forget about the Battle of Badr throughout their life. When they go visit Makkah, they will be like, I want to go see that place because I've learned about it. I know what they went through. I know how they won. They have that connection. You have to have that connection first. Other than that, like, sometimes you go like, yeah, I know it's Battle of Badr. Yeah, I'll take a selfie from the car. It's so hot outside. I'll just sit inside. Like, because we need that connection. We need to build that connection with the children first before even going to the next step.
That's really nice. Can you remind me, what are the age groups? Because I have a question for
Sure.
you. What is the oldest age group for this?
So we have three age group: 7 to 10, 11 to 12, 13 to 16. And I've had so many parents 16 plus above, they asked, like, oh, why are you not doing for 16 plus, because that's a totally different maktab. But I did tell the parents that, if you have a 16 plus say a year old kid, just let us know. Then if there are enough interest, because the way we teach, not teach, the way we talk to a 16, the way we engage with a 16 plus and less than 20, it's totally different than, like, your regular teenage maktab. So, but if there are parents, I have emailed my list asking if there are parents who are 16 plus, because there's so many parents who reached out to me, why can't you do this, why can't you take my 18-year-old? So,
Oh boy. You're like, first join our parent coaching because we need to talk. I know I'm sounding really sniffly. I apologize, but I'm curious. Let me ask you a question that I would have, and that is, like, little kids, especially online program, they like to be engaged. Like, little kids are, let's say, better, but that teenage section is going to be a little harder. The middle school and
100%.
teenager. What is something that's, a lot of people will say, like, I've signed up for my kids for a class and it's a lecture. and they want their kids to sit
Oh
for the
no,
lecture. Can you
no.
just like tell? Yeah, like
Yeah.
I think you told me something about this, but I feel like we should talk about it because the truth is, if you put a teenager who has a very busy social life, a very busy homework schedule, and you're like, you're going to sit on Zoom or some platform or whatever for an hour every Saturday, they're going to be like, no, thank you. So can you tell me, like, sell me,
Yeah.
market me
So
on like what would make a teenager want to show up,
I
boy
think
and
one
girl?
of the thing that we are forgetting, Megan, is there is a way we have to talk in their language. You have to talk in their language. You cannot lecture them. You cannot, because they already know the information. They know, okay, this is what this
Maybe.
is, that is what it is. Most of them know, okay, Islam got 5 plus.
Yeah.
Most of them know, okay, Salah is a fard, then most of the kids know. I think the way the teachers engage with the children is like through stories. Like you go to the basics. Why are we here and what are we doing? And even for example, right? And this was something that one of the youth director, he told me, and he just asked me some questions on um basketball. I said, like, well, I don't watch basketball. And then he just asked me some questions like, what do you mean by bench? And he asked some terms I don't even remember. I said, like, I don't know. I watch when my brother watches, but I that's all I know. I don't know the team. I don't know anything. So and then he said, like, well, if I ask you, there's a basketball game, will you come and watch with me? I was like, well, because you're asking, I'll come and do. And he said, like, that's exactly why children come and pray Salah. I was like, what does basketball got to do with Salah? Because you don't know you don't know anything about basketball. For example, you only know, okay, basketball has got two teams, and okay, men team, women team, and you have to play in the basketball court. That's all you know, but you don't know anything about it. And our children know, yeah, Salah is you have to pray, Salah is fard, you need to pray and stuff like that, but they don't know on what situation Salah was given to Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. You have to have that story, because Salah was a gift that was given to this ummah. It's a gift. You take that as a totally different approach when you talk about Salah. It's a gift given. And what situation? It was a year of grief. And he was like so hurt physically, mentally. And at that time, Allah blessed him all the way. He took him to the heavens, and then he blessed him with the Salah. There is no context. This context is missing for the children. And if
Yeah.
this context is missing and you ask them to pray, it's just me asking you to come and watch the basketball game. Yeah, you'll come and watch one game, maybe two game, and third game is like, you know what? Forget it. I'm just going to work. You watch. I'll just give you company. And that's exactly what kids are doing.
I
And
see.
we have to have that engagement. Teenage kids, yes, you have to have speak their language. You have to bring up the stories, and you have to tell them in a way that they're like, now I get it. Now I get it.
That's really awesome, because most people think by the time we get to the teenage years, we just need to have lectures on gender relations, what's fard, what's haram. Again, the correction, but you're almost going all the way back, right? In a beautiful way, like context. What's the context? Why is this relevant? I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yes, alhamdulillah. I think we are hitting an hour. Thank you so much, Megan, for joining me. I know you were not feeling well, but still.
I'm holding back sneezing from this light so badly.
So
Alhamdulillah. It's a pleasure to
thank
be
you,
here and talk with you.
thank you so much. And if there are any questions, I'm just looking at thing. If there are any questions before we end, just let me know, because I'm trying to see
How can we help?
where there are.
Remaining few minutes.
Yes, we have a couple of minutes. I'm just looking if there are any questions. We have a lot of people joining.
MashaAllah.
Okay, I don't think there are any questions. So you can all watch the recording. It's going to be there in YouTube. And I'm going to share the URL in the chat here. If you're watching in YouTube or Facebook, I'm going to share it. And for those who are in Instagram, you can find the link in the profile, muslimnationbuilders.com. And inshallah, I hope you sign up. And I would love to see you as part of this journey, inshallah.
Absolutely. So parents are starting first, and then the kids next Saturday, right?
That's correct.
We're getting there close. Okay, awesome. All right.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Fozia, for letting me share with you and everyone else, and borrowing your audience just to learn more about your program and discuss. And Allah bless you and everything that you're doing. It's a wonderful opportunity for parents and families, and we're all looking forward to checking it out.
Okay, inshallah. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamun al mursalin walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.